The reason why I want to talk about what I'm about to get into now is because of the latest headlines involving Africa Bambaataa. Now, to those of you who are not in the know, Africa Bambaataa is credited as being a co-founder of hip-hop. He is also credited as being a co-founder or founder of the Zulu Nation. I'm not sure if he's the founder or co-founder, I'm not sure, but he's accredited as being a major force for and within the Zulu Nation, who has well over 1 million members all over the world, and they've done a lot for the African American community. And they do a lot in mentoring young boys, young men. Now, there are, I believe so far, 4 men who are now in their mid-40s to early 50s who are stating that Africa Bambaataa allegedly sexually abused them when they were in their teens. Now, I had my own feelings about that. I'm not going to get into that. But watching these brothers talk about their experiences, the body language, the emotion, the hurt, the anger, the pain, I feel it all. I resonate with these brothers. Why do I resonate with these brothers? It is because I too have been sexually abused. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, but systematically over a period of years by different people. And with the exception of one, they were blood relatives. Those who sexually abused me when I was a child up until about I would say about 15. And there were some things that continue on there after 15 because I was so messed up in my head at the time that I started looking for the sexual abuse, particularly with a cousin who started molesting me at a younger age. In my mind, I began accepting it because I wanted love. I wanted to feel love. And at that time, that felt like love to me. This is how dysfunctional having your innocence taken from you through through an act that I think molestation is too mild of a word to describe it. It really is the murdering of innocence. The crucifixion of innocence. So I'm not going to get into the later years before I decide to pull myself up and work on myself and face my demons and release them. I'm going to talk about the years when I was just a little innocent child, having no real understanding of what was being done to me. Although I understood without anyone ever telling me this, that this is something that I should never tell anyone. When I was coming up, talking about these things were very taboo. Of course, it's a lot more, the climate is a lot more open for the dialogue, but the experience and the shame and the pain and everything that comes along with it is so profound that even in a day and age where more of us can come out and be open and honest about it, there are people who are still willing to just keep it to themselves. I'm sure there are many people who have taken it to their graves. But it has manifested, that dark secret, that pain, that anguish has manifested in their lives in ways that created a lot of self-destructive behavior. This is what this undoubtedly does to those of us who don't deal with it and release it. Now, when I found out about this story and I decided to do some research on it, and I'm hearing these brothers give their testimony, the body language, the hurt and pain that they express, and even the anger. One of the brothers even said that he was so angry and it lent itself to him just hating gay people in general. And that too is another layer to why, or as to why, a lot of males do not come forth, because there's this automatic association when molestation by a male is done to another male. God forbid any male who is really not gay or have natural gay inclinations be perceived or thought of as gay, particularly in the black community where masculinity, hypermasculinity is so valued, and there's such a push for this staunchness and this one-dimensional aspect of what a real man is or supposed to be. And this cultural programming is really, ironically, aiding and adding to reasons why there is a lot of homophobia. There is a lot of self-hatred, self-deprecation, self-destructive behavior. A lot of brothers are very, very angry. The blind rage, the violent outbursts, the mistreatment of women, it's all connected. But it seems that many of us are failing to understand what these rigid beliefs and these associations are psychologically creating in the minds of the brothers who are carrying this pain, this burden, these secrets. My sexual abuse started when I would say it started when I was about 3. And yes, I remember. It started at the age of 3 by a babysitter who was a babysitter who was the niece of my mother's boyfriend at the time, who ended up being my brother and sister's father. The niece was about 16 or 17. And when my mother would leave me with her, the minute I asked for something as simple as cereal, she would tell me, well, you know what you got to do. And I just understood. Again, a 3-4-year-old just going along with the program. She used to take me, put me on top of her, and I would hump her, and she would just be getting off. She used to tongue kiss me. She would put her breasts in my mouth. I would, she was just doing a lot of very inappropriate things. And again, without her ever telling me not to tell anyone, I just knew that that was something I did not or should not tell. The second time I was sexually abused was by an older female cousin. Whenever she had a chance, she used to take me into the bathroom, take my pants and underwear off, lie me on my back, and she used to get down on me and ride me. And naturally, I'm just a little boy. Biology kicks in. I get an erection, and she's riding me. I remember the smell with the foul odor, the white cream on me, and I remember laughing because it tickled to me at that time. Now that I'm older, I clearly know that that was no laughing matter. And the fact that she brought that to me with the odor, and she was open, she was going for the gusto. I later found out that she was being sexually abused. As a matter of fact, 3 of my abusers were sexually abused as well. One of them by their own father. It is a vicious, hideous cycle. The third time I was sexually abused was by an older female cousin. She used to take my hand and put my hand down in her underwear and make me fondle or finger her, one or the other, one of the same, they're basically one and the same. And again, I remember the foul odor on my hands. I just gotta keep it real. The fourth person who sexually abused me, and this is the one that went on off and on for years, was with an older male cousin. And it started off as us being kids wrestling. He was older than me. He was bigger than me at the time. I've always been naturally strong for someone who doesn't lift weights or work out, but he was working out and he was bigger than me. So when we would wrestle, I would put up a really good fight, but he was relentless. When it escalated to the point of sexual abuse, I knew that at some point I would have to give in, because if I actually fought him, I would be put in a position to tell someone why we were fighting. And that's how that happened. I would just give in and let him have his way, because I didn't want to physically fight him and have to tell why we were fighting, because it wasn't in me just to lie. I wasn't thinking that, okay, if I fight him and there's blood drawn or it gets really vicious, I wasn't thinking, okay, I'm going to make up a story and say this is why we were fighting. I'm thinking I would have to tell somebody, and I don't want to do that. And that happened. That sexual abuse situation happened with my cousin off and on for years. Unfortunately, that's the cousin that I found out who was forced, him and another one of my first cousins was forced to perform oral sex on his biological father. Y'all, when I decided to tell my mother that I was sexually abused, it was years after it had been done. But my mother knew something was wrong because I was very angry. And I took it out on my mother, my brother, and my sister. My mother even came to me at one time when I was 17 to get to the bottom of why I was so angry. And her position at that time was, are you gay? She asked me, are you gay? And at that time, I wasn't ready to talk about any of that. I lashed out at her. You know, I was very angry. Like, how dare you come and ask me that? And my mother was like, no, baby, you know, I'm just trying to figure out what's wrong with you. You're so angry all the time and you're so withdrawn and you're not talking to anybody. You know, I just want you to know, if you are, I'm going to love you no matter what. She had no idea it was way bigger than that. But I wasn't really ready to talk about sexuality either. Because there was another cousin who, a situation where I was staying with them, and this cousin, again, an older cousin, and he climbed on me, pulled my pants down while I was asleep. He didn't penetrate me, but he put his penis between my buttocks and ejaculated between my butt cheeks. I'm just going to keep it real because, you know, when people say molestation, we need to get real with what is really happening here. This is sex, which can be used as a weapon on a physical plane, meaning STDs. Thank goodness that was never my reality. Or these parasitic sexual demonic attachments that latches themselves onto people who are very, very imbalanced. And we're talking about people who have a huge history of different sexual partners, bringing that to a child who didn't have a chance to decide or to explore those aspects of self on their own accord when we were ready. And then we grow up in a world and see the sexual dysfunction. From my perspective, I even see people who are heterosexual. There's a lot of dysfunction in that. So when you start talking about bisexuality, homosexuality, and all this other stuff, you're going to really get a lot of confusion. I didn't really see any healthy examples of sexual expression, regardless as to sexual orientation. And this subject matter right here is the reason why there's so many women, because women tend to be more forthcoming, but there's so many women and females that I've talked to over the years who have been sexually abused. Incest going on. We're not going to have as many males coming forth because, again, especially in the black community with the homophobia, and let me tell you my definition when you guys say there's no such thing as homophobia. From my perspective, homophobia means the person has a fear of either being expressive with their homosexual thoughts or feelings, or has a fear of others discovering their homosexual inclinations, aka DL men. I've never been on a DL, by the way. So if you ever hear or read that, that's a lie from hell. My family can tell you that. So we have so many people jumping away from the subject matter of homosexuality because homosexuality and pedophilia have now been put in one category. There are people out there trying to make them one and the same, and they're not one and the same. They can be, meaning if a male has molest another male, that is pedophilia, but there's a homosexual act going on within that paradigm. But to automatically tie the two together is another reason why so many males do not or will not come forth. I know some people who identified as homosexual and they knew they were homosexual before they were even molested. They just knew what they were attracted to. Or gay. Let me say gay. They knew what they were attracted to before they were molested. So does being molested by members of the same sex make one or can make one homosexual or gay? Quite possibly, but there's no real scientific evidence to prove that to be the case for everyone. Have we stopped and thought that maybe sometimes males who have, like with me, I've talked about this, I've always been naturally feminine. No one taught me this. I came straight out the gate having a natural level of sensitivity, and I'm not ashamed of that, because that's who I am. Even though I am a part of a culture that is relentless in trying to make those of us who have this natural inclination feel embarrassed and shameful. This too is another layer as to why this demon continue to fester within my community. Looping something so broad under the same umbrella, or stroking it with one broad brush. I was always naturally effeminate or feminine. And there is a possibility that those who targeted me, particularly the males and the males who have tried but didn't succeed, they were responding to that aspect of myself, of self. And those other males who are out there who are targeted, because being a feminine male is automatically seen as a weakness and makes those of us who have these traits an easy target. Just as females are easy targets, because in the minds of many, the feminine or feminine energy is weak and therefore should be taken advantage of every possible chance. So we have a lot of brothers running around engaging in self-destructive behavior because they're on a DL. They're confused about their sexuality. You got females who are promiscuous, having sex with older men, the young girls going after older men because their uncles or some older man took their virginity, and these females are running around. It gets really ugly. That's why I say it's so dirty and it's so layered. But I knew early on that I would be one of those who would have the balls to come forth and talk about this. You're not going to shame me into hiding and not talking about this. Nobody is. My family can tell you. I got family who watch my videos. They know I've been talking about this stuff for years. I've been talking about the download guys because when I got older, I found out that there are a lot of download guys out there, probably more than we want to admit. They don't identify as homosexual or gay, but they're there. And many of them have been molested by males and females. The confusion is on an epic level. And I'm telling you, until we start having healthy dialogues about this subject matter and take the shame out of it and stop associating different categories under one umbrella and stop trying to shame people who have a different sexual expression or have an emotional expression that may not be the norm, we're going to continue to see this mess go on. It's going to continue. It's just going to get worse. I always said that what we fear will eventually be drawn to us, magnetized to us, or it will come out through our seeds. Here is why we have so many people who are bringing birth or giving birth to more of this confusion that I'm talking about. We don't even realize the cause and effect that our ignorance is creating around this subject matter. We're in a time where everything that's hidden in the dark will come to light. But I'm making this video because I know there are those who are watching my videos who have been sexually abused, who have been abused, who are dealing with secrets of incest. And I'm telling you, you have to release it. You have to face it. You have to let it go. But these men who are coming out now, even though this happened to them over 20 years, 30 years ago, you can't tell someone when they should be ready or they should have came out then, because unless you lived it, you are not qualified nor dignified to speak on this subject matter. So if these men are feeling comfortable with coming out talking about this subject matter now, they should be applauded, they should be respected, they should be upheld, they should be celebrated, they should be encouraged so that they can be beacons of light to help so many of our other brothers and sisters who suffer in silence and who engage in self-deprecating, self-destructive behavior, meaning using drugs, alcohol, having unprotected sex with different sexual partners. As my grandfather always said, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with sex, but sex can be used as a weapon. Sex can create death and diseases and destruction and more chaos and confusion if we don't have the proper clarity. And that's a word I use a lot. If we don't have the proper clarity in how we go about expressing and talking about it and addressing the subject matter, it's very, very layered. I've always said that we are multi-layered, multi-dimensional beings, and this subject matter of sex, gender, sexual expression is no different. There is no black and white. There's a lot of gradient, grays in between. But we live in a world that wants to continue making something so layered, so complex, black and white. And all that is doing is fueling the fire, adding to the confusion, and creating more of the same problems. I speak passionately about this because, of course, it's real to me. I've been there, I've done it, and I pulled myself out of it. I faced my cousin, and I talked about it, and I've forgiven him. I've forgiven everyone. I had to. Because if I didn't, I was creating a slow death for myself. I had to. And openly talking about it releases the shame. Because when you hide stuff and you keep it to yourself, what you're essentially doing is reinforcing the programs and the expectations of others. those ignorant people, those people who have no clue. You are empowering them indirectly because they are uncomfortable talking about this subject matter, or because they don't want to believe that this is a common, prevalent problem, particularly in certain communities. We would rather hide and bend and be quiet so we don't rock the boat. I'm not that kind of person. Sorry. And I know that by me coming forth and talking and openly sharing my experiences, it has given many others the courage to come on out and come forward and be honest. Live in truth. Release those demons. When I released those demons and started loving and accepting myself unconditionally, I realized that, hey, sex can be a beautiful thing, but with someone that you're equally yoked to, someone who has love, honor, and respect for themselves, so that when we come together in an intimate way, we empower and fortify one another. Not the mess that I see all over the place. This is why a lot of relationships just aren't working, regardless as to whether it's a bisexual, heterosexual, gay. It doesn't matter. Molestation and incest and these deep, dark secrets in relation to these subjects is a major catalyst in a lot of dysfunction in relationships, because a lot of people walking around with these deep, dark secrets. When we gain clarity, we move in our right mind, and when we're in our right mind, we make righteous decisions.